All right. Cool, folks. Well, welcome. Welcome to this, our second online meetup. And this is everything you need to know to get started with workflow automation for identity. And I put a little star there because it's, of course, not everything, but hopefully it will be almost everything that you need to get started. If you, maybe you can just put a message in chat just to make sure you can hear me okay, and you can see my screen. That would be great. Cool. Thank you. Thank you. So yesterday I sent a tweet message that I'm going to have only 3 slides, but actually I'm going to have 4 slides. So I had to add an extra slide. But we'll actually spend most of the time in workflows, actually building something and showing you how it works. So again, I said 3 slides, but we're just going to have 4. So this is the plan. So hello and welcome, and that's what we're doing now. So my name is Max Katz, and I lead community advocacy for Okta Workflows. This is our second meetup, online meetup. Now it is being recorded, and then I will send a follow-up message tomorrow with some resources from this event, and also a link to the recording that you can watch it later. Then, of course, we'll spend most of the time actually building something and showing you how it works, just an overview of, again, almost everything that you need to know. And then we'll, I think we should have some time at the end for questions, but even if we're running out of time, I'm going to share my email, and you'll always be able to just send me questions directly. I always encourage to do that. So this is the 4th slide that I added. So and this is the what we're going to do. Kind of a an overview. That's the first dashboard overview, and then I think the rest I'm going to cover all the other points actually as I build a flow for you. So I figured instead of showing you slides, a really good way is to actually build and cover each point as I build. All right. So I think that's it. One more thing I want to say is that it's always interesting to know where people are joining from. So if you want to put in chat what city, location, country, anything else you want to add, I think that would be interesting. So I'm joining from San Francisco Bay Area, from East Bay. Oh, very good. I see St. Louis, San Diego, very nice. Chicago, very cool, and San Francisco. Awesome. Well, welcome. And then I see some folks from East Bay and Canada, Toronto. Very nice. So again, thank you and welcome. Very cool. I see more people from Canada. Very cool. Very cool. Okay, so let's get started. All right. So let me. Okay, so the first, let me open my notes here on the second screen. Okay. So again, this is kind of going to be kind of a high-level overview. Of course, again, we'll spend a lot of time building, but to start, I'm going to do an overview. So first of all, when you start with workflows, this is where you're going to end up, and this is sort of the home page. And what you see here is there is a section here with some videos to help you get started. There's some getting started videos, advanced videos. If you scroll a little bit down, that there are templates, right? So templates are out-of-the-box pre-built flows that you can add to your workflows dashboard. There is a small, like a short configuration step that you need to do, but then you can just start using them. So I think it's a great way to start learning, running, and perhaps breaking and then fixing the flow. So this is the homepage. Now on the right hand side here, we've got some more resources, documentation, office hours. So I encourage you to sign up for office hours. They're really great, where you can join a session and ask questions. There is official training, and there is a link to some new features and kind of release notes type documentation. All right, now, so this is the homepage. Now, so this is flows, right? So this is where we're gonna, and you spend most of the time. So on the left-hand side, you got folders. So you can organize flows into folders. And again, I encourage you to do that. As you can see, I've been using emojis, which kind of helps me sometimes because I have a long list now of different folders. Kind of helps me sometimes find what I'm looking for. So, if you want, you can of course do it as well. Now, every folder then has one or more flows. And let me open, let's see, this one here, right? So you can see you can use emojis like this too. So I use like a star. So this is like my favorite, or featured flow, for example. And then also flows as tables, and I'm going to cover tables. Sorry, a flow can have a table, or as you're building a flow, you can use a table to store your data, I should say. And I'm going to cover that as well. So this is the flows page. Now on the connections, so connections, these are connections to third-party services. So as you can see, I have Smartsheet, Slack, I have, of course, Okta, I have Office 365, Google, and so on. So this is a list of all the connectors that you created to third-party applications, right? And we're going to actually use a connector in a demo that I'm going to build. And finally, there's also a templates, what I just also shared. So this is a list of all the templates, right? And you can also search templates. And if you want to add a template, you click it, there's a description, there's a video documentation, and then you can always add a template. And it will create a folder. And then in that folder, it will be a flow. So this is actually 14 flows in 2 tables. So a lot of resources. So it will create a folder, and then all the flows inside the folder. All right, so this is just kind of a high-level overview of the dashboard. And so I think next we're going to do is actually build a flow. And again, I'm going to, as I build it, I'm going to explain all the other parts of workflows. So let's go to this folder. All right. Now, to create a new flow, what you would do is there is a big button, new flow, and that's what we do. We're going to click the button. So, usually it's a good idea to give it a name. So the folder we're going to build is this. Now, we want to get notified when an application is assigned to a user. All right. So we want to get from, let's say a Slack message, but it can also be email. It can be even an SMS message. But when an application is assigned to a user, we want to get notified, right? So how will we do that? So let's first give this a name. So notify when new application is assigned. And then I usually like to give it a description as well, and you can just copy. And then this will help us run the flow. So once we have the flow, you'll see how this works, but you can always check this now or check this later. All right. So we created a flow. Of course, it's blank right now. Now, how does the flow run? So there are 5 ways you can invoke a flow. All right. So number 1 is when some event fires in your organization, right? So in your Okta organization, an event occurs. So one of the events that we're going to use is when application is assigned. And there are many, many other events that you can use, right? So that's one way. Number 2 is scheduled. So you don't need to wait for a specific event. You can actually schedule the flow to run periodically, whether it's every hour, every day, or every week. Number 2 is it can be a helper flow. A helper flow means that you have a main flow, and then from the main flow, you call the helper flow. So it's like a function, or I guess like a sub function. So that's another way to invoke a flow. The fourth way is via API endpoint, in that you actually call an API, which then calls a flow, right? Or your particular flow. So that's the fourth way. The fifth way is actually a manual, right? So you can see there's a test button. Now it's called the test, which it does, you can test the flow, but you can actually, if you wanted, let's say you want to only run it when someone clicks the test button. So that's a fifth way to run a flow, right? Just click test and it runs the flow. So there are 5 ways you can run a flow. And I see there's one question: can we have 2 events as a workflow trigger? So not in a single flow, but if you wanted to have 2 different events, you would have 2 different flows. So you could duplicate, for example. You can have one flow with event 1 and then a second flow with the other event. So that's one way to do that, right? All right, now, so let's actually see how this looks. So again, it says here when this happens, and then you get this window with a lot of different services. So the one that we want is Okta, but let me just show you quick. So this schedule is right here. This is if you want to schedule run periodically. This is the helper flow, and this is the API endpoint. And then this one is event. Now, all these services you can see, there's a large list of external services. They all have events that, again, that you can use and then trigger the flow when that particular event happens. Okay, so in our case, we're going to use Okta. And you can see all these events. There's a large list of events. Every service will have different events supported, right? But the one we want is, and you can search here, so user assigned to application, right? And then again, depending on the event, you might have to set some options here. In my case, I'm going to say, choose the application. Now I'm going to use a particular application here. In my case, it's Salesforce. And then, all right, now I've configured the event, and then this is all the information that I'm going to get when this event fires. Now, one thing I'm going to also want to say is that, so this is a connection to Okta. Now, and how this is done, how's the connection? Where's the connection? The connection is right here. So I already have an existing connection. That's why I didn't have to do anything. But if you wanted to create a new connection, you would click this new connection and then fill out the information here. And similar for other services, right? So of course, before you can use a connection to some other service, like, let's say Box, right? You would need to, of course, connect to Box, and then it will, then you can use one of the events that it supports to trigger a flow. Okay, so next, you can see, so once the event is triggered, then it says, then do this, right? And then there are 2 options here. We can do app action or a function, okay? So the difference is, if I click app action, you can see that these are all the external services you can connect to. So again, I just mentioned Box. So you can say, maybe you want to get some information from Box, or perhaps you want to say something to Box, right? So these are all external services that you can connect to. On the other hand, function, these are a lot of actions that allow you to manipulate data. So you can see their text, for example. You can work with strings, you can work with numbers, you can do if-then type logic. So that's the difference between actions and functions. Again, I'm going to use both. Now, in this particular, as the next step, I'm actually going to use an action, which is from Okta. And the one I need is called read user. So Okta. And then read user. Now, what this does is that It allows us to get information. We want to get information about the user to whom the application was assigned. Now, it has a lot of outputs, but we don't need this, so we can uncheck this. And actually, all we need is we need a username, we need a first name, and we'll use a primary email. All right. And this is, now it has an input. So most cards will have an input and will have an output. Now it requires ID or login. So what we do is that we actually get this information from the event. If we scroll down a little bit here, we can see it says Okta user. So this is the user to whom the application was assigned. And so we take the ID, right? And we pass the data to this card. And how you do that is you select this variable and you drag and drop it like this, right? I really love this, how this works. It's just this mapping of data. Now, what we can do now is we can test the card, right? So of course we can test the flow. We're going to do it in just a few minutes. But we can also test each card, which I also encourage you to do. There is a test this card button at the bottom, and we click test, and it's asking us for ID or login. So of course we need the ID of the user. What we can do is, let's switch back here, just refresh. So I have a couple of users here, and let's take, let's take Olivia, and then we need Olivia's user ID. So one way to do that is that we can copy it from the URL. And of course, other cards will have different data that they require. And then test. And then click test. And then we get information about Olivia. And of course, again, we only selected to show the username, first name, and the email. Okay. So again, this is very useful, and I encourage you to test cards as you build your flow. Okay. Next, we're actually going to use a function, and we're going to use one called assign. Now, what this does is that it allows us to create kind of a variable so we can use it in our flow. Now, what I'm going to use it for is we need to also know the application name. And then if I scroll in the event itself, the application, we can see display name. Now, I could map it from the event itself, but sometimes it's beneficial to actually have a variable to hold that information if you're going to use it a lot. So I'm going to take display name and map it like this. All right. So here we have the user information, and now here we have the application that was assigned. Okay. Next, we're going to create a message that we're going to send to Slack. And again, for that, I'm going to use function. And if we go to, you can go to most popular, and this is the compose. So the compose is part of the text card. And this just allows us to write any text that we want. So we can do something like this. So user, or actually name, and then username, and then application edit. Okay. And now we need to, again, fill in the dynamic data that we have in this flow for this compose card. So what do we do is first we get the first name. We can see we have it here. And then we just drag and drop like this. And if you put the mouse cursor over the variable, it shows you the connection. Very neat. I love this. And then username, we're going to take the username. Oh, let's see if we can do it like this. Here we go. We fixed it. And then finally the application, and that's why we have it here. Now, again, we could take it from the event, but I sometimes find that this is a little bit more handy to have it like this. And again, all right, here we go, better. Okay, very good. Now, we can test this card. We would need to enter some information here, but we don't have to. Let's see here. Yeah, it's not gonna it's not gonna, of course, add anything, but this is how it looks. All right, let's save. Now, the last step is we want to send this message to a Slack, okay? And then we're gonna go to app action. So because it's a connection to another service, it's becoming an app action. And then if I have Slack right here, and then I get a bunch of actions that I can perform. So you can see, again, every connection is going to have a lot of different actions. The one I need here is send message to channel. Now, again, I already have a connection to Slack, okay? But again, if you wanted to create a new one, I already have one. It would, it will actually, if this is your first time, it will actually prompt you to create a connection. But this is how it looks, and then you follow the steps to connect. Okay, now this is my channel, and actually I'm going to send it as a bot and save. Right, so these are the options, and then it's asking me. So these are the inputs. I want the text of the message, the name, and then let's do an emoji. So icon, and then click save. Okay, so this is how it looks. Now for the message, we're going to take the message from the compose, and again, connecting it like this. As for the name, this could be maybe app spot, and then the emoji. And let's see what we can do. I don't know. Let's do a flower. Here we go. All right. Now, so this is also this we can easily test, and let's click the test button here. And hello from Workflows, and it all looks good. And let's click test. And let's see here. And here we go. So this is my my Slack, my test Slack workspace, and you can see right here, and this is my emoji here. We get the test, so this works. All right. All right. So what we covered so far, right? So we covered creating a flow. We covered how to invoke, how to trigger a flow, again, 5 ways, how to map, data from one card to another, how to use connections to external services, how to use functions. So this is a function, and this is a function, and then we also tested cards. And so next we're gonna see how we can test the entire flow. Okay, so we're gonna click here. We're gonna enable. Okay, now because this flow is triggered by an event, if we click test, it's going to ask us to enter a lot of information. So what we can do, we're actually going to do like a real test where we're going to assign an application to a user and then see how this works. Now, so again, if you want to trigger a flow via an event, you have to make sure that this is on. Otherwise, of course, it's not going to work. Okay. So notice that we're in the flow tab. There is a flow history tab. So if you remember, I clicked the check box at the beginning when I was naming. So this is to enable this view so we can see executions of the flow. And again, this is super, super helpful. I love this view that you're going to see in just a second. Once we run this, we'll see it here. And also, this is also a neat, actually shows you kind of a very high level overview of your flow. So if you want to, you can take a picture of this and perhaps use it somewhere. I don't know what happened here. Let me just refresh this. All right, better. Okay, so our flow is on. Now we're going to go to the Okta dashboard, and we've got a person here. The application is already assigned to Olivia. So why don't we remove this? Right. And then we're going to assign an application to Olivia. All right, assign. All right. And let's see here. Now, it could take a few, usually it's pretty quick, but sometimes it could take a few minutes for the flow to sort of get registered and get deployed. But we can see it's actually here. On the right-hand side here, we can see a success. And then we can see the cards, and we can see how the data flows from card to card. So again, I think this is so neat and so powerful where you can see how data flows from card to card. So this is the event, and you can see there's a lot of information that we get with the event. And we can see, and of course, these mappings are shown here as well, where you can see how data is mapped, passed, and then we can see the information retrieved, right? And we can see this is the application name, and then we can see the display name. We can open it like this, and this is the message that we're going to send. And finally, we send it to Slack. Right? And if I show Slack, right, this is what we get. So we should probably add a space here, but I think that's fine. And actually a space here as well. All right. So again, this is a very, very powerful view where you can see how the flows, the execution. Now, of course, sometimes, and I'm sure you're going to get some errors. So you're going to see them in the error tab, and then you can see there's a success. Now, some flows, they can take actually some time to run. So if that's the case, because you're doing something, or it's waiting for another service to finish, external service, for example, you would see them in progress. All right. Well, very cool. Now, one more thing I want to do here is to show you how to use tables. So the idea of a table is as the flow runs, right? So we get data, we can pass data to other cards, we can save data to other services. But there are, of course, a lot of situations where we want to save data. I mean, you can look at it as flow data, but it doesn't need to be just flow data. It can be any other data you want to save into something like a cache almost, but it's not cache that's going to be cleared. Actually, it's a permanent, like once the flow is done executing, that data will stay there. And that's the idea of a table. Okay, so again, as the flow runs, you can save data, you can remove data, you can do anything with the data. And then when the flow is done, the data will stay there in the table. Then when you run the flow again, you can do something with the data, modify it, save it, delete it, and so on. Okay. Now, let me create a new table. And it looks, here, let's give this a name. Apps table 2. And it looks just like a basic Excel document. There are 2 columns which are there by default. We want to create a new one, and we're going to call this person. You can also set a field type, but we're going to stay with text. And then we're going to call this app name. All right. So I got 2 columns. And so what we're going to do is let's go back to our flow, which is here. We want to, let's say before the message is sent to Slack, we want to save this information to a table. Now, maybe later, you're going to have another flow where you actually run a report, or you get all the data from the table and you send, let's say, a report to someone. Like all these users and all these applications were assigned on a particular day, for example. Or you can take all the data from a table and push it perhaps into Google Sheets, right, for someone to view later. Now, right here, so right, you can add cards. These are called cards, or steps, if another way to look at it. And then this is the function. Scroll down a little bit, and you can see here it says tables. And you can see you can clear a table, you can create row, delete row, export to the CSV file. We want create row. And then it's going to ask us for a table name. And then, so these emojis help a lot, actually, for me to find the folder. And this is the table. save. And then, of course, it knows the fields, the columns that I created. And then the person here, then I'm going to go back and let's say first name. And then the application name, remember using the assign. All right. Let's save. All right. And let's go back to is it Olivia, and let's remove the assignment from Olivia. And then let's add the assignment back. All right. So we can go to flow history and let's see if there is a second execution. Right here, it also shows you when the connection, when this was fired, you check last. So 9:28 a.m. Pacific time here, and we can see it took a few seconds, but right here, this is the second execution with the additional create row. So this worked. We can go to Slack. We can see Slack right here. And if I go to table, and we can see that there is one record here. All right. So again, very, very handy where you can save data and then come back to it. So again, data stays here between flows executions. All right. Let's see here. Looking at my notes here that we covered. So we covered now tables. So there are two other. We're actually going great on time. There are two more things I want to show you is templates and also how to use custom API. So we are, let's see here, we're right here. So we covered the dashboard, we did the actions and functions, 5 ways to start a flow, mapping data, testing a card, testing a flow, using connections, using tables, and then templates, and then connecting to a custom API. So let's do that next. All right. So for templates, again, so we sort of exit and go to templates tab. And again, these are all the templates. Now, the one I want to show you is, let's see, create report with Google Sheets. Okay. And then it has a description. So what it does is that, we've been assigning application to user, but you can also suspend users in your organization, and you want to get notified. So this particular template, it actually saves the suspended user to Google Sheets. Okay. And so that's what we are going to do. And so once you have it, as I also just shared just a few minutes ago, once you have all the information in Google Sheets, of course, you can share that information with someone, or you can send them an email, and so on. So how do we add a template is just click here, add a template, and it's going to tell you what it's going to add, and then add template. And then again, it creates a folder with a template name, and then there is a flow. Let's open it. All right. And this is how it looks. Now, most, I think, templates will have a note card, which I didn't cover, but it's a note where it's like a comment. It usually used to help you understand how a particular flow works. So you can put any text here, and of course, it doesn't impact in any way how the flow works. All right, so let's see how this works. First, again, how is the flow triggered? Is that user suspended event is fired. Now notice here it says choose connection, right? Because it's a template. Now we actually need to have a connection to this particular service. In this case, it's Okta. So I'm going to choose connection, and I'm going to select the connection, and then it shows all the data that we get. Now notice that the data connection is already here. So this is when the flow is triggered. Next one is it will take information from the event. It will take the display name, the user ID, and date and time, and it will connect to Google Sheets. It will create a new row. Okay. So we do need, let's see here. We do need to create a connection to Google Sheets. I'm not sure why this, oh, here we go. So you do need to create a connection to Google Sheets, but also you need to choose which spreadsheet. So I selected a spreadsheet and then which worksheet. So right, this one, save. Okay. So again, we're getting information about the user and then we're creating a row on Google Sheets. Next, we're just using a compose. And then this is the user who was suspended. And then here we are using the Google Sheets card again. What we're doing here is, let's configure this one. So this is the spreadsheet. What we're doing here is read worksheet info. So we're getting the URL, and we need the URL of Google Sheets so that we can put it in an email and then email it to someone and say, hey, this document has all the suspended users. And you can see worksheet URL. Again, we're using compose card, and we put together this message. So, it says, this user was suspended, and this is the link to the worksheet. And then finally, we're sending an email, and we're using, in this case, a Gmail card, send email. And again, we need to create a connection. I already have one. And the only thing we need to do is see everything is set. We need to enter an email. So what I'm going to do is, we have this kind of a burner email that we can use. All right. And the name is fine. Let's click save. All right. And let's turn this flow on. All right. Again, it might take a second or two for it to register. Let me see here. I see one question. Does the spreadsheet need to have owned by you? Or can it be shared by on the shared drive? It's I would think that if you're able to see it and view it in your account, you should be able to select it. So I mean, as long as someone shares that spreadsheet with you, I think it should work. But of course, it's also easy to test and see. But I think it should work. Okay, so let's go back to our organization. And as we've been working with Olivia, let's see here. Let's suspend her. So Olivia, this is where we're for the application, and then let's suspend her. All right. So we suspended Olivia, and let's go here and see. And we already see an execution here. And so again, this is the event that was fired. And we can see that this is the information, her name, email, or ID, and then the date. And then this is the text. As you can see right here, this is the card that gets us the URL, and you can see the URL right here. And then finally, we put together the entire message, and then we send the email. Now, let's see if we get the email here. And we did, and this is how it looks. So, so you can see, right? And then if I open this, right? So there's some runs from yesterday, but this is the run that we just did, right? March 31st. All right. So cool. Again, of course, now people have access to this worksheet, and then they can see all the users that were suspended for for some reason. Anyhow, so this is how a template works. It's a great way to start using and learning about workflows. Again, you do need to configure those connections. So that's of course you need to do. Okay. The last thing I want to show you is how to invoke a third-party API. And for that, let's go back to our online meetup. Okay. Now, so of course, again, there's a pretty good list of different connectors or connections that you can set up. Now, of course, you can run into a situation where what you need is not here. Now, so there are two ways you can connect to an external API. So number one is, and let's use something like, let's use Gmail. Now, you can see all these actions that you can do. So for example, delegate, send as alias, forward emails. Now, so if there is a connection to a service that you need to use, but the action that you need to perform is not listed here, so an option is to use a custom API action. Okay, so it will work in this case, of course, with Gmail, but then if some API you need to use is not exposed here, then you can use custom API action. Okay, and then you select the request type, so maybe it's a post, and then you can configure this. Let's see here, choose fields. Yeah. All right, so this is you set the URL. So that's one way to do it. But let's say you're working with a service that's not listed at all, right? So it's not listed here at all. So to do that, let me delete this. We can use a card called API connector, and it's in the function, add function option, and this is right here. So this is a connection to a third-party API that's not listed in the workflows. Okay, and you can do all the various verbs here or actions. I have an example right here. It's already set up. This is a very simple. I'm using random user, which generates just the random user information for whatever API that you need. But you enter the URL, and then you can test it. And then you get back. So this is the information that we get. So from that particular API, right? So again, there are sort of different levels. I mean, of course, one, you connect to a service that's already configured, it's available out of the box in workflows, and use one of the available actions. Number two is that you can use, as we just saw with Gmail, if one of the actions is not listed, you can then use the custom API for that particular service. And then if there's, you need something completely that's not available, then you go with the option like this, which allows you to connect to any third-party API. And when you configure it there, when you set up a connection, there are also different auth types. You can do basic, you can do custom, you can do auth, or it can be none. Like in my particular case, there is no authentication at all. So, cool. I think, just looking at my notes here again, I think we covered everything. So let's go back. Actually, let's go back here. So we covered templates. We covered connecting to a custom API. Now, I'm pretty sure I'm forgetting something. And of course, it's not everything. I mean, as you can see, the platform is really powerful, and there are other things you can do. We're going to run these online meetups, at least once a month. So we're going to be covering more, and perhaps at the next one, we're going to focus on something, maybe just the templates, for example, or something a little bit more specific than just a general overview. But yeah, I think we covered everything, and I'm happy that we had the time. So let me know if you have any questions in chat. Let me see if I can see the Q&A here. Okay, I don't see any questions. So you can use chat or Q&A, whichever is easier. Now, one last thing I want to show you is resources. So if you go to this link, I've created a blog post with all the resources that are available for workflows, from documentation to tutorials to system limits to office hours, videos, training, templates. I think everything you would need is there. So that's a really good page to go to, or perhaps even bookmark. Now, and if you have any questions, my email is right there. So actually, I love getting emails with questions, whether it's something you want to say, hey, this was awesome, or you want to say, hey, this maybe sucked. I hope not, but you can say that as well. But I just in general, I love getting emails from people with questions. So don't hesitate to reach out. Cool. I see one question. Oh, this is a good question. So how do you get emojis? So emojis, so if you want to do it, I'm going to show it in the folder in a second. But if you want to do it here, all you have to do is, and I'm using a shortcut on my Mac, so it's Control-Command-Spacebar, and it opens an emoji. So we can do something like this, and then save. And if we go back, you can see it's for the folder. It's the same thing. You would just rename. Oh, what happened with the name? Didn't like the name. Let's see. Well, it's fine. So let's put an emoji. Actually, it's SMS, so it's mail. I don't know if you can see the emoji. Probably, maybe not the emoji window, but and then here we go. So that's how you add emojis. So yeah, I find it a little bit easier to find what I'm looking for if I set an emoji. You know, one more thing, like on this view, if you have, I only have 2 flows here, but if you you can actually switch to this kind of view, right? And there's also an option to sort them and also sort here as well. Well, cool. I don't see, let me know if you have any questions. Let me open the Q&A again. I don't see any questions. Could be a good sign. Maybe everything was super clear. But again, please send me an email if you have anything. And as I shared earlier, this is being recorded, and then I will send a recording of this in the message that's going to go out tomorrow. So let's see, any last minute questions? If not, I think we're doing perfect on time. We've finished under an hour, and so I know you're busy. So thank you again for joining. Thank you for spending 50 or so minutes with me, and I hope this was useful and valuable, and you learned at least a little bit about workflows. Cool. Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Manabu. Thank you. Cool. All right, folks. Thank you, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.